Rev up your engines!
Well, Ford is now offering voluntary buyouts to a bunch of their workers. Well, if you know anything about the business world, there's a big reason for that, and that is cutting costs. The older workers, they've been there a while, they have seniority, they make much higher pay than what they pay the new people who are coming in. Now, Ford is hoping they can get rid of 1,000 people this way. And I will quote them. They give some corporate nonsense about the reason. We are reshaping our workforce to match the critical skills needed to transform our business. Yeah, in other words, to pay people less money, replace the people that are making more money, and replace them with people that make less money. What these corporations are always doing. They want to pay people as little as possible, get rid of the people that make more money, and then call it it's the future. We have to compete, so we'll pay you less. Now, if you notice, they don't pay themselves less. The corporate guys keep making more and more for themselves. They want to get rid of 1,000 of their workforce. It's bad enough that they have a hard time finding people that want to work in the factories anymore. They're having a hard time getting people to do these jobs, right? But they want to get rid of the people that have been there a long time because they make more money and replace them with people that they'll pay less money. I remember the same thing happening when I did stuff at CBS. People that were years before making $250,000 a year, they were replacing with people that were making $90,000 a year. Reporters that were making $60,000, $70,000 a year, they were replacing with young ones that were making $30,000 or $28,000 a year. And they call it, it's to keep up with the times so we can pay people less. That's all that stuff is. And anybody try to convince you of something else, they're giving you a line of baloney. They're having a hard enough time getting workers, and now they want to get rid of ones. The doublespeak that comes out of this stuff is just too much for me. Nonsense. Mazda's going to inline six. What do you think of it? I think it's an interesting thing to try. 6 cylinders, have decent torque, and they can last forever. A straight 6-cylinder is going to outlast a V6 engine, just about any design that's out there. They just have good balance to them, and they're cheaper to make because instead of V, twice everything is all straight line. So you only got the cams for the one, not cams for both sides. There's a lot less moving parts. Who knows? Maybe it'll be piles of junk. I don't know. But Mazda, with their relationship with Toyota, is making better cars. I can't wait to try them out to see how they last. I hope so many customers buy them. And if you do, hey, just bring me to Clarksville and I'll showcase your new Mazda so I can talk about the 6-cylinder engine. Mangovision says, what's your opinion on passive versus water-cooled batteries on electric cars? What are the pros and cons of each? Well, of course, water-cooled are the most efficient, the safest, because you got a radiator, a fan, and the water dissipates heat better. The specific heat of water is so much higher than air that it absorbs heat. Let's say you're in a room that's 65 degrees, air conditioned, you feel cool, it's not really going to bother you. But you go in 65-degree water and sitting there for a few hours, you get hypothermia because the water takes the heat off of you a lot better than air does. The air ones are just a cheaper way to manufacture them. They want to save money when they build them. You want a water-cooled one. The air-cooled ones, no, it doesn't work as well. It's just common sense. The water takes heat away, it dissipates heat a lot better than air does. Why do you think we're driving water-cooled engines mainly in our cars and not air-cooled? There's still a few air-cooled things around, but it doesn't work as well. Mini Nuggets says, Scotty, I'm on vacation in Georgia, the country. Okay, I thought you would have meant Atlanta, Georgia. Most of the cars here are rebuilt salvage cars imported from the U.S. What do you think about that, driving on our highways? Boy, they're pulling a fast one on you Russians, Georgians out there, let me tell you. They're telling you the clunkers that they don't want over here. I don't really like the idea of it. I'll tell you a hilarious story I heard years ago. The same thing happened decades and decades ago. The United States used to sell their rebuilt salvage cars in Japan, right? The Japanese are taking them apart and studying to learn how to build cars better themselves. This was a long, long time ago. And then one day, an engineer was talking to an American engineer. And the American engineer says to the Japanese, we looked at one of the cars you had. Why do you have lead in the fenders? And they said, well, your cars are built that way. And the guy said, no, they're not built that way. But back in the day, they used lead for body work. Now they don't because it's poisonous and dangerous to the workers, right? And it weighs a lot. But in the olden days when the metal was broken, they just melt lead and cover it. Lead melts real easy and you can mold it, then you can polish it and paint it and it looks okay. Well, we were sending them cars that were wrecked and they were filled with lead because they were fixed cheaply. And the Japanese thought that's how they were built. So some of them were copying it. So I wouldn't be a fan of driving around salvaged, rebuilt titles. Who knows what kind of shape they're in, you know? I like the state of Louisiana. They got a law there that sometimes when the cars are wrecked, they say this car can only be sold and shipped out of the country for driven on the roads. Otherwise, it has to be cut up for parts in the United States. But they allow you to ship them overseas and sell them. So I wouldn't be a fan of buying one of those things myself. Oh, and he said, Scotty, did you move? Because when you work on cars, it's a different driveway. Yeah, I moved like 10 months ago. My house at 1141 West Bell in Houston. First, it was a pile of dirt after they tore my house down, and now there's 2 townhomes sitting there that they're trying to sell for like $718,000 a piece, so that the government, instead of getting my $10,000 a year taxes, will now get $40-something thousand a year in taxes. Good luck selling them. That's all I got to say. I'm out, and I'm tired of paying high taxes anyways. That's one of the reasons I moved to Tennessee. It's nicer here. It's more open. I spent my life in a city. Now I'd rather be more out in the country-ish, even though they're still close to anywhere. I get to Nashville in 45 minutes, so I can do stuff there. I mean, I like it here, and there's a lot more open room here. Plus, it's cool. I don't have to deal with all that stupid yearly inspection for anti-pollution equipment, check engine lights, because they don't do that in this part of Tennessee. They do in Nashville, but they don't here in Clarksville. So I can tell customers, oh, you check engine light on it. Well, it's this. It doesn't really mean anything. And since you don't get your car inspected, who cares? It'll run fine and drive it that way. I like it a lot better. A lot more freedom here. Town Guy 85 says I got a 2001 Toyota Corolla with 80,000 miles that has an oil leak. It only has 80,000 miles. Mechanic said it's a blown head gasket. It's only leaking on the outside. It doesn't have melting oil or leaking antifreeze or overheating. I don't think it's that. I think it's a timing tensioner. The timing chain cover does often leak a little bit on those. And I've had Toyota dealers try to sell it to people. I tell people, don't waste your money. You're only losing a tiny amount of oil. Just check the oil every once in a while. You know how many drips it takes to make a quart of oil? It's like 5 or 10 football fields worth of drips to do 1 quart of oil. So I've had customers drive like that for 10 years after they started leaking, and they still drove down the road perfectly fine. If it runs fine, it's not losing coolant, it's not overheating, and maybe got a little oil every once in a while. What the heck? Leave it alone. I wouldn't even do the timing chain cover, tell you the truth. I've had so many customers driving that way. It seeps and it makes it look oily. Big deal. It's an old car. It's what? 21-year-old car. You're going to get little drips or little grease stains and stuff. What the heck? Live with it. Don't worry about it. But mechanics are always trying to sell people things. And you're not having any problems. Don't waste your money on that. Personally, I've never seen a head gasket go out on a Toyota Corolla at 80,000 miles anyway. I have never, ever seen that. You want to find out exactly where it's coming from, do my video. Finding the source of car leak, Scotty. You just use ultraviolet leak test kit, and then the dye comes out exactly where the leak is, and you can pinpoint it real easy. Kaizen said, what are the most indestructible transmissions in each of these categories? Automatic, manual, CVT, and dual clutch. I would have to say, over time and presently, Toyota really makes the most indestructible of all of those things. Everybody makes mistakes once in a while. You see an oddball thing. Now, back in the past, Honda had kind of weak automatic transmissions, but great standard transmissions. But now, the Honda engineers have learned, and all of their transmissions are excellent. The only problem with a dual clutch transmission is it's called dual clutch because it's got 2 clutches inside it. A normal manual transmission has 1 clutch. You step on a clutch pedal, the clutch opens, and you shift gears by hand. A dual clutch automatic transmission has 2 clutches, but instead of you having a clutch pedal, there isn't one. The 2 clutches inside the transmission are operated by computer, and they use electronics and hydraulics to do the shifting. They do a good job. But, and this is a gigantic but, you now have a transmission that has 2 clutches inside it. And when they wear out, whoo-wee, does it cost money to replace them? Because it's not just that you got to take it apart and put 2 clutch assemblies in, but when you're done, the entire system has to be reprogrammed, and it can take over an hour. And you can't do it unless you have a $5,000 scan tooler up like I do and know how to operate it, because you drive it and then it says shift this now, shift that then. It's a really complex thing, because I've seen people say, oh, they want too much money at the dealer, so I'll replace the clutch. And it's doable. You take the transmission off, replace the 2 clutches. But when you put it back, it won't work right because the computer's set up for the old worn-out clutch. It learned it was worn, it adjusted itself. Now it has to be reset and road tested. You can't do it yourself. Realize, in the long run, dual clutch transmissions are extremely expensive to maintain and repair as they finally do break down. U2 says, Scotty, Do manual shift cables need any maintenance like lubrication or something like that? It's a good idea to lubricate any kind of cables. Now, that said, they're thick cables, and each end have rubber seals on them to keep dirt from getting in. But of course, everything wears. Now, I'm an old motorcycle guy, right? I've been driving motorcycles since I was a teenager. Get motorcycle cable lube and just lube both ends. It's simple to do, and it makes them last and last and last. Then you don't have to think about it. And if you're an absolute fanatic, get the motorcycle lube, and you can get a little injector kit that goes like a little needle that goes inside under the lip, and then you hook the can up and spray it. Then it actually sprays it inside the sheath cable. Lubricates it that way. They're going to last a long time. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.